I do.
People want to believe, you know?
There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
You can be passionate about that. But what it ends up hurting is it also, for everyone that's on this Lazar kick, you have to understand, without asking these challenging questions and demanding some sort of answer, you're actually hurting your own credibility then too. You're hurting that MUFON community. You're hurting ufology because you're promoting it as truth, but turning a blind eye to glaring problems.
Right.
So if you don't want your own reputation tainted, don't be afraid to say, hey, Bob, I want to believe you, but I've got some problems with this. And I'm not going to take well, I got a headache for an answer, because if I'm going to back you and put my name out there on the line for you, you at least owe me the explanation that I'm asking so that my name is not dragged in the mud.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how people need to start looking at this.
Let's face it, day-to-day life sucks. Okay.
Yeah.
It could be boring. It's incredibly boring. Look, I like that. This is my best friend right here. So life can be so incredibly boring. But when you have an imbecile like this Bob Lazar and this Corbell moron, these guys feed off of that. And even that you know, they know that you're gonna love it. It's entertainment, folks. And that's what they're giving you. That's all they're giving you. They're not giving you facts. They're just giving you entertainment where you could sit at night and just go, wow, could you imagine working at Area 51 with aliens or working on a spaceship? Could you imagine? Come on.
I think that there are people who, like you said, they want to believe, but for some reason, there's this misnomer that you can't believe in Roswell and Area 51 and aliens and UFOs and not believe in Lazar. They have to go hand in hand. And I'm here to tell you that that's not
the case. Yes.
You can actually disconnect it and say, hey, Lazar, you're actually hurting this community and this field. And there's things that you're saying that I'm finding problems with. Nonetheless, if there are people who are going to believe everything that Lazar says, then let's do this. Let's just take his main claim of how he got this job, okay? And we're going to use his own words. So Lazar, if I'm coming at you hard, I'm not apologizing. Again,
no, don't.
I'm
Please,
using
no.
your words.
You're
So he initially said, one of the major elements of his initial story that he has said over and over was that he was hired as a quote unquote replacement for another scientist that had been killed in a major explosion. That was how he got the job. He was told this, he said he was told this occurred in an underground shaft or tunnel at the test site where the reactor had been taken for a particular experiment. So George Knapp did this special with him when in November of 1989. So that's when Lazar really came out, and he said, look, there was an accident back in April of 1987, an accident that was passed off as an unannounced nuclear test. Lazar said in March 1990 interview that the blast occurred in May of 1987 in a vertical tunnel and took out the first door, killing 3 people. It destroyed a few $100,000 of monitoring equipment. In a September 1990 interview, Lazar stated that the blast had blown the blast door off in the monitoring area. He thought the blast size was in the 20 kiloton range. Now, almost consistent story, almost consistent. So let's look at what the DOE records have, okay? So there are actual records that on April 18, 1987, codenamed Delamar, there was a blast in April of 1987 that was 20 to 150 kilotons. April 22nd, 1987, codenamed Presidio, 20 kilotons, less than 20 kilotons. And April 30th, codename Hardin, 20 to 150 kilotons. So there were 3 announced tests in April of 1987. They were known in advance at the test site. There were no unannounced tests in May of 1987. So on December 7th in 1993, the Department of Energy released all previously unannounced tests at the test site going all the way back to 1963. And there were 204 of them, but none of them occurred anytime in 1987. They also stated there were no other unannounced tests. But let's say they're lying. Well, let's go to the USGS, the US Geological Society, and they have a database. And if you do a test site, a circle search from about the center of the test site to about 100 kilometers from the center of the test site in a radius, okay, from the date range 1987 to late 1987, there was, will show a magnitude range. What that will show is, for example, like earthquakes. How much did the earth shake?
Yeah.
It comes up with a big fat goose egg, because in that area, the only seismic activity within 100-kilometer radius of the test sites, for example, for the months of April, May, and June, were the 3 announced underground tests. There were no mystery events. There was no other seismic activity that could not be explained. That's going off of what Lazar said, what the US Geological Society has in their databases, because it's their job to track seismic activity, especially since we're all along this fault line out here on the west, as well as what the DOE released. So if you're not going to believe the education, you're not going to believe the employment thing, you're not going to believe all this stuff that should raise red flags, let's look at his own words and his story. There is nothing in the records about the shaking of the earth to corroborate something that he's promoted over and over and over. There's no death records.
Yes.
Nothing.
Oh, but the government, with it, somehow the government, not only did these people just, they disappeared, and and that happens everywhere, right? So these people, they disappeared, but somehow they called up the people that monitor, like, my God, your house would shake. It would show not only in the United States, it would show up globally that this went on.
Yeah.
Okay? So even if the states wanted to cover it up and the government said, no, it never happened, they'd be people in Finland going, yeah, but see, on our computer screens here, something went off. A 20 megaton, kiloton went off on this date. We have it right here. All these countries would have this, and this parasite, just, it's just like, again, we love a good story, but I love a good story, but I so much more enjoy the truth.
So let's keep going with this truth. Bob, you radioed in with Billy Goodman back in 1989, his radio show.
Yeah.
And you said he called in and he said he started working at Los Alamos as a technician. Okay. But he later claimed that he was a physicist, but then he made a mistake, and on camera. And then he told Corbell that on camera that in 1982, while he was working at Los Alamos, that he went out and installed a satellite dish there. That's the year that he told that that article came out that he was a physicist. So common sense, people. What kind of physicist goes out and installs a satellite dish? They've got technicians, they've got mechanics and things like that. I mean, bro, how dumb. If you believe that he was a physicist, but by the way, I went out back and I installed a sat dish, then you really are Boo Boo the Fool.
Yeah, like
And nothing anybody says is going, like, I could tell you I've got an orange pencil in my hair and you're going to say that it's white. There's nothing anybody can say because you're drinking the Kool-Aid. But anybody who has like an iota of intelligence will say, yeah, they wouldn't have their physicists go out and do this bullshit.
Yeah, that would be like a pilot, a 747, you know, he's a pilot and saying, listen,
You loaded your luggage.
yeah, I'm a pilot, but not only am I going to load your luggage, where do you live?
Yeah.
Because if you got, how big's your driveway? Because I could totally land this baby on there. We could load it up and we could like just head down the road. We could make it to Miami in like 6 hours. I mean,
So,
it's asinine.
yeah. If we're just going to go off of, because like you said, everybody just believes what Lazar says. Let's take him at face value. Okay. December 28th, 1989, KVEG radio interview. A caller said, what is the resonant frequency that the antenna section in this device operates at? And he responds, a physicist says, the resonant frequency of the gravity wave, I know, but I don't know it offhand. I can't remember. Can you give me a ballpark? Like 2000 kilohertz. I really don't remember. It's a really odd frequency. Is it measured in kilohertz, gigahertz, or megahertz? I really don't know. You don't know what wave frequency it's measured on. I can understand not knowing the numbers, but
Yeah,
you didn't know.
but that's where you want to just slap the fuck out of them. It's like, you are lying, man. Like, how do you not know that?
There are pages and pages and pages of transcripts, radio interviews, the transcripts at UFO conventions, at Rachel, where he's asked these questions and he fumbles, or he says, I don't know. But what he didn't realize, he was asking basic science questions. And if you did all of this stuff, you wouldn't forget. You would know what frequency it was measured on. Okay, you don't know the exact number. You don't know the general frequency wave or frequency the waves were. It doesn't make sense. So I'm imploring people to don't just take him at his word anymore. Don't just trust what Jeremy Corbell says, because, you know, he's in it for money. He's a producer.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He's now, this once free documentary is now has to be rented, and he gets a portion of those proceeds. Go back and listen to all of Lazar's interviews. Read what he said. Read these books and his quotes or the transcripts, and start thinking and start putting all of these little nuggets together in a bigger picture. What everybody else has done is they'll focus on one little piece of a puzzle, and then they can say, well, that's discarded. Then they'll see another piece. Well, that's discarded, and that's discarded. Instead, I want you to all take these little pieces of this puzzle together, and they will build a picture. And the one little piece that Lazar has, that he's saying that he can't substantiate anything for, you'll notice that piece doesn't fit in the overall picture. The overall picture is, this is not the truth. This is not real. He's built a facade. I don't normally like to come out guns blazing and say, you know what, you're a fraud, you're a liar, you're a bullshit artist. But this is the one time that I am going to really come out hardcore and say, Bob Lazar, 1, you are a pimp. 2, you're a criminal with a record. You do. 3, you are an absolute fraud. You claim to have degrees that you do not have. You are claiming to be a physicist, but you don't have a PhD by your own admission. You claimed to have worked for the government, had Q clearance, which is like the top secret clearance in that particular field, signed these non-disclosures, which you have to do when you get these clearance papers, and which I think is bogus, by the way. You're a liar about that. And if you're not a liar about that, then you committed espionage or treason, because you're banking off of this. So you're a liar because you can't keep your word, or you're a liar because you're making up a story. Either way, you're a fucking liar. And if I'm wrong, then come on a show and prove me wrong.
Yeah,
But if I'm right, you're going to crawl back under a rock and you're going to play to the audience of people that don't have access to records, that don't know how to do research, or that just want to believe.
yeah, but Melanie, this is the thing that I don't get, is that's very confusing. You've named off like several things that he's done that is wrong, like that is a lie.
Mhm.
Wouldn't like the very first thing, wouldn't that just set you off and go, wait a minute, something's not fishy here? Like just the very first thing. So, okay, let that pass. Say, yeah, yeah, give it a pass there. He didn't go to that school. How about the second thing, about the brothel? No, let's let that go.
Oh, that's actual public record.
No, but like even if you don't, even if you say, hey, you know what? He had a brothel, big deal. Hey, what are you gonna? Hey, it's a man, All right, let that go.
Conviction for pandering. Okay, got it. You wanted to make a buck.
And then he created element 115. He never did. Okay.
No.
Let that go. I mean, there's so many red flags in this idiot's story that you would sit there and go, there is no way somebody would believe it. And do you know what it reminds me of? The comedian Bert Kirschner, a fat guy. Anyways, this is a fat guy. He tells this is comedian, right? And he tells this bullshit story that never happened about him and Tracy Morgan getting absolutely hammered, drunk at a bar, and then they grab Tracy Morgan. Bert doesn't know what's going on. Tracy Morgan gets into a fight with the maitre d', and they spent thousands of dollars that night on liquor and on a booze and the food, and all of a sudden Tracy Morgan gets into this fight with one of the owners of the place. So they grab Tracy Morgan and they throw him out, and Tracy Morgan lands on his without his shirt, lands on the pavement, on the cold pavement, gets up and goes to Bert, see, that's how you get out of paying a bill. And the crowd goes crazy and thinks this is the funniest story in the world. But you ask Tracy Morgan, and Tracy Morgan says that story never happened. But people still think it happened. Mm-hmm. Do you know how fucked up that is? When even the guy that was in the story, that Bert came up with, Bert Kirschner, that I'm screwing up his last name, but anyways, he came up with this bullshit story, and it's been embedded into people's mind that it is gospel that it happened. And even the guy that all this happened to said, hey man, that never happened. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. But people still say, no, that happened to you, Tracy Morgan. We know it did. And Morgan's like, nah, man, never happened.
Well, it's easy to get snowballed. And it was easy to get snowballed back then for so many decades because we didn't have the capabilities of really double checking his story and digging up these documents, these case records, this, all of this other stuff. And the people who were doing the research and saying, hey, he's full of shit here and there, blah, 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 they had skin in the game because they were trying to make a name for themselves. So I can fully understand why people would be like, no, you're just coming after him because you want to sell books, because you want your name, and it's professional jealousy. But now that's not the case. Now there is access to records. Now there's other means of doing research and homework. All I'm doing is showing, hey, look at everything. Take it all into consideration instead of just this or just this or this. I put it all out there in one nice little box. and a bow for you. And if at the end of the day, you can say, okay, yeah, this isn't making sense. This isn't making sense. This is a bald-faced lie. This is a bald-faced lie. He admitted he falsified his badge. The W-2 is fake, and we are able to prove that. And you still want to believe, then nothing anybody says is going to
Yeah.
change that person's mind. And it's okay. You know what? You live in La La Land. In fact, send me an email and tell me what it's like. I'm curious. It'd be nice to get away. But if you're serious about ufology, if you're serious and you say you do research or this is a passion of yours, then take all of these things into consideration and reevaluate this Bob Lazar character, because that's all he is a character.
Yeah.
I get angry when people commit stolen valor. For example, my
Of course,
team.
yes, it's pretty it's a disgusting. And for people that don't know what stolen valor is, if you're in the military, okay, and you're you say whatever, major, whatever, anything, you whatever rank you are, and you come back, and I sit around and I say, I was a major and I have a uniform. I have pictures taken. I go to like reunions, and I'm lying. I've never served. I've never, because once you serve in the military, okay, it's a dangerous business. Okay, you could get killed easily in the military. Okay, and to have some maggot come along and say, oh, I was a major, I got, that's what stolen valor is. You're stealing from somebody, be it man, woman, whatever. You're stealing from somebody their honor. Okay, and
Well,
that's the most disgust. That is,
yeah.
you're pulling a Bob Lazar.
So
Okay,
stolen valor is that it's when you claim to have served in the military and yet you never did. And it's also when you have served in the military, but you're embellishing your record and you're claiming to have done a lot more than you actually did.
people put that on their resumes.
Yes. And it's to me, it is extremely dishonorable. So my team, Military Veterans Paranormal, I make sure we look at everybody's DD 214. And if they're active duty, their active duty military card, to avoid any stolen valor. Because if it, when I look at this, I can see that this person's not bullshitting. They've been here, this is their MOS, they served and they were honorably discharged. That carries weight. I would never want anybody on our team that was dishonorably discharged or committed stolen valor. I would not only disassociate with them, I would slam them I would freaking skull drag them.
Yeah, but what does that tell you about the person's character?
Exactly.
I mean, would you really want to do business with somebody that
That's
does
what
that?
I'm getting at, is that if you value your reputation and if you value what you believe and what you do, then wouldn't you want to research Bob Lazar before you back him and promote what he's saying as truth? Because if not, when you play in mud with another person who's muddy, you're going to get dirty. You are judged by the company that you keep. When he is discredited, which he has been, and you come out and you promote that lie, people aren't going to believe anything else that you come across. So let's say you do find the Holy Grail and you are hand in hand with an alien, or you do find something legitimate. People then can come back at you and say, you're full of crap. I'm not going to believe anything you said because you promoted a fraud or you turned a blind eye to facts and science, and you are still backing someone who's committing fraud.
Yeah.
That's what people need to understand. It's not about being mean. It's not about getting butt hurt. It's about promoting truth, if that's what you want.
No, I'm amazed that more people, like when I look up, if you could Google Bob Lazar is a liar, and nothing comes up.
Right.
No, no, there'll be nothing there. It's kind of like on
It gets
purpose.
buried
Yeah.
when people promote these stories about him, or he writes about himself, or Jeremy Corbell. When they put it up there, they know how to do the tags and the SEOs to make sure that their article comes to the top. You'd have to go to page 7 or page 8 on a Google search to find anything about
Yeah.
him being a hoax.
Yeah.